You are not the kind of person this happens to. You need to understand that before anything else. You are 24 years old. You take the subway to work. You eat lunch at your desk more often than not. Your idea of a good Friday night is a book and takeout curry, and the specific pleasure of not having anywhere to be. You are good at your job and quietly ambitious and completely invisible to the kind of men who have corner offices on the 42nd floor of buildings with lobbies that make you stand up straighter just by walking through them. You are in this building because your boss sent you. An interview, a manuscript acquisition meeting, a routine professional task that you have prepared for thoroughly because you prepare for everything thoroughly. The elevator opens on 42. A woman with a headset, elegant, composed, the specific composure of someone who has managed chaos so long it no longer registers as chaos, greets you by name. She leads you down a corridor where the carpet is the kind that absorbs sound completely, where the art on the walls costs more than your annual salary, where everything is controlled and precise and deliberately impressive. She opens a door. There is a man standing at the window with his back to you, looking at the city, the way people look at things they own. He turns around, and in the space of 3 seconds, the 3 seconds it takes for Alexander Cole to cross the room and extend his hand and say your name in a voice that suggests he has read your file and found it interesting, your entirely ordinary Friday becomes something else, something you will spend the next several months trying to find the right word for. The meeting is about a manuscript, a business biography that Cole Industries has commissioned and that your publishing house has been selected to produce. This is what the meeting is about. You have notes, a proposal, specific editorial recommendations that you stayed late 3 nights this week to prepare. Alexander Cole listens to your proposal with the complete attention of someone who has trained himself to give everything his complete attention, because complete attention is a form of power, and power is the medium he moves through the world in. He's questions, good questions, sharper than you expected, more specific than the meeting requires. He has read the brief more carefully than most CEOs read anything, and he wants you to know that he has read it, and you understand immediately that being known, being actually seen rather than generally noted, is something this man does deliberately and with intent. After 40 minutes, he says, your instincts about the narrative structure are correct. The draft they sent us reads like a press release. We need a story. You understand the difference. You say yes. Stories need tension. They need a protagonist who wants something and cannot simply have it. He looks at you for a moment. Then he says, agreed. The way he says agreed is not about the manuscript. You know this. You file it carefully in the part of your brain that processes things you are not ready to fully examine. And you close the meeting professionally and shake his hand, and Mrs. Alina materializes to walk you back to the elevator. In the elevator going down, you look at your reflection in the mirror doors. Same person who went up, same coat, same prepared notes now back in the folder. Something has shifted. You cannot locate exactly what, but the shift is real, and you have spent enough time with words to know that real things that cannot be located exactly are often the ones worth paying most attention to. Sophia knows immediately. This is the specific gift and specific burden of a best friend who has known you for 4 years. She reads you before you have decided what you are communicating. She looks up from her screen when you come back. She looks at your face. She says, how was the meeting? You say, productive. The acquisition is moving forward. She says, that is not what I asked. You sit down, you put your bag down, you look at your screen. Then you say, he is not what I expected. Sophia says, what did you expect? You say, I expected the press release version. The CEO who talks about synergy and growth projections and treats editorial staff like a vendor rather than a collaborator. Sophia says, and instead, you say instead, he read the brief. He understood the brief. He asked about narrative structure. Sophia is quiet for a moment. Then she says, I need you to hear me say something, and I need you to actually hear it, rather than filing it away to think about later. You say it. She says, men like Alexander Cole are very good at making you feel specifically seen. It is not an accident. It is a skill they develop because it works, because feeling seen by someone with that much power is intoxicating in a way that is hard to think clearly inside of. And the thinking clearly part is the part I need you to hold on to. You say, "It was a professional meeting, Sophia. I presented a proposal. He responded to the proposal." Sophia says, "I know, and I also know your face." And your face right now is not the face of someone who had a productive professional meeting. You look at her. She looks at you. You say, "I know." She says, "Just keep the thinking clearly part. That's all I'm asking." You say, "I always think clearly." Sophia makes a sound that communicates without words everything she thinks about that statement. She is right. You both know she is right. And knowing she is right and being able to act on it are two different things. And you are already starting to feel the distance between them. Mrs. Alina calls your office 2 days later, not to schedule a follow up meeting, to ask if you are free for coffee. This is unusual. You know it is unusual. You go anyway. She is already at the table when you arrive, coffee ordered, hands folded. The composed efficiency of the 42nd floor traded for something slightly more human in the neutral territory of a coffee shop with no view. She says, "I want to tell you something that is not my place to tell you, and that I am telling you anyway, because I have watched this situation begin several times, and I have watched how it ends. And I would like this time to be different." You say, "I don't know what situation you mean." She says, "Yes, you do." You say nothing. She says, "Alexander is, there is no simple version of this. He is brilliant, and he is generous in ways that are not visible publicly, and he is the most disciplined person I have ever worked for. He is also someone who was hurt very badly a long time ago and who built everything, the company, the control, the distance, around protecting the place where the hurt is. He lets very few people pass the control. When he does not know how to do it gently. He only knows how to do it completely." You say, "Why are you telling me this?" She says, "Because he asked me to schedule a follow up meeting with you, specifically with you, not with your supervisor, not with the editorial team, with you. And that is not about the manuscript. The coffee shop is warm and busy and completely ordinary around this conversation that is not ordinary." You say, "What are you suggesting I do?" Mrs. Elena says, "I am not suggesting anything. I am giving you information that you deserve to have before you decide, whatever you decide." She finishes her coffee. She stands. She says, "He is worth knowing. I want to be clear about that. He is genuinely worth knowing. Just know what you are walking into." She leaves. You sit with your coffee and the information she gave you and the decision that is forming underneath both of them. You think about Sophia. You think about thinking clearly. Then you take out your phone and you accept the meeting request. The second meeting is not about the manuscript, folks. This is established within the first 10 minutes when he asks you, not about the editorial timeline, not about narrative structure, but about what made you choose publishing. What made you want to work with words specifically? You answer honestly. You say, "Because words are the only thing that can accurately describe what it is to be a person. Everything else, film, music, mathematics, approaches it. Words get there." He looks at you for a long moment. Then he says, "That is the most confident thing anyone has said in this office in a very long time." You say, "You asked a direct question. I gave you a direct answer." He says, "Most people give me managed answers, answers that have been edited for the room." You say, "I edit manuscripts for a living. I know exactly when something has been edited for the room. I try not to do it myself." Something changes in his expression, not dramatically, a fraction. The specific fraction of someone who has encountered something unexpected and is recalibrating. He says, "I want to tell you something, and I want you to understand that I do not say this kind of thing." You wait. He says, "The meeting on Friday, I had read your file before you came in, your editorial notes on the Henderson acquisition last year, the way you argued for a different structural approach to a manuscript that everyone else at your house had accepted as finished. You were right, and the book performed because you were right. I wanted to meet the person who trusted their instincts that specifically." You say, "You could have called my supervisor." He says, "I could have. I called you." The office is very quiet. The city moves 42 floors below. The photograph on his desk is turned slightly away, and you notice it, and you do not ask about it because Mrs. Elena's voice is somewhere at the back of your mind and you are trying, genuinely trying to keep the thinking clearly part. He says, I would like to have dinner with you, not a business dinner. I am asking you directly, so there is no ambiguity about what I mean. You look at him, the control, the distance, the fraction of something underneath the control that appeared for one moment when you said what you said about words. You say, I know what you mean. I want to be equally direct. He says, please. You say, I do not do complicated. I do not do managed. If you ask me a direct question, I will answer it directly, and I expect the same. If that is not something you are able to do, then dinner is not a good idea. He is quiet for a moment, the longest moment of the conversation. Then he says, that is the most honest thing anyone has said to me in this office. You say, is it a yes or a no? He says it is a yes. Dinner is 3 hours long. Not because there is nothing to say, because there is everything to say. And you are both people who say things carefully, and saying things carefully takes time when you are also doing it honestly. He tells you about the company, not the press release version, but the real version. What it cost to build it. What he sacrificed. The specific loneliness of having built something very large that you spend a great deal of time inside of alone. You tell him about the manuscript you are most proud of, a first novel by a writer nobody wanted to publish that you fought for 6 months and that won an award last spring, and that you think about when the job feels like administration rather than purpose. He says, you fought for 6 months for someone else's story. You say, it was a good story. Good stories deserve to be fought for. He says, what about your own? You say, I'm still in the middle of it. He looks at you, and for the first time all evening, the control is not the first thing you see. The first thing you see is the person underneath it, complicated and real, and carrying something he's been carrying for a long time and is beginning cautiously, uncertainly, in a way that clearly costs him something to put down. You walk home after, through Manhattan at night, the city electric and enormous around you, indifferent in its great magnificent way to the specific thing that just began at a table in a restaurant on a Tuesday. You call Sophia. She answers immediately. She says, well, you say you were right about everything you said. She says, I know. And? You say, and I went anyway. She is quiet for a moment. Then she says, was it worth it? You think about the fraction, the moment when the control moved and the person underneath was visible for just long enough. The 3 hours. The question about your own story. You say, I think so. I think it might be. Sophia says, okay, I am here. Whatever happens. You say, I know. That's the part that makes it possible. Here is what 50 Shades of Grey is actually about. Not what the cover suggests, not what the controversy is about, what the story is actually about underneath all of it. It is about the specific terrifying courage of letting someone see you, really see you, not the edited version, not the managed answer. The actual you, what you want, what you think, what you are willing to say directly when someone asks a direct question. And it is about the specific, terrifying courage of being on the other side of that, of being someone who has built enormous walls for very good reasons and is being asked by a person who does not edit themselves for the room to consider whether the walls still serve the purpose they were built for. Both of those things are frightening. Both of them require something from you that comfortable life does not require. The power in that story has nothing to do with money or penthouses or helicopters. The power in that story, the reason 50 million people read it, is the question it asks underneath all of it. What would you risk to be fully known by someone? And what would you give up to finally let someone in? Those questions do not require a penthouse. They just require two people willing to be honest in a room together, which is, it turns out, the rarest and most valuable thing in the world. Drop in the comments. Have you ever met someone who made you want to be more honest than you usually allow yourself to be? Tell me about it, because the comment section of this video is going to be full of the most interesting stories we have ever collected, and I want to read every single one. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Every week, a different life. Every week, something true about what it means to want someone. See you in the next Borrowed Life.